So what's up, Shredheads? We are on the Pokemon Card Classic today with real PokeNav, the Pokemon Navigator. So I just want to throw it straight over to you to introduce yourself to maybe anybody who watches my channel who hasn't came across your stuff yet. You know, give a little background about how you got into collecting, how that collecting turned to investing, what you kind of cover on your channel.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. First of all, man, really good to be here. And
A bit in the work, and I'm glad I'm excited and glad that we got to do this.
yeah, and we have a big time difference as well. I'm in Arizona, US, and we've got about 8 hours betwine us, so
Yeah,
it's not always easy to schedule these things.
Yeah, it's like 6 p.m. over here.
Yeah. But yeah, a little background on me. Well, first of all, I've been a Pokemon fan since the very beginning. I started with Pokemon in 1999. Well, actually 1998 when the anime first came out. So I started watching the anime. I can remember the original commercials for the anime that I believe were airing on Kids WB here in the United States. So I got hooked immediately. And from there, got into the trading card games. So started with Base Set, Jungle, Fossil. And much like most people out there, most people in our generation, I was into the hobby, especially the trading card game, until about, I would say about 2002, 2003. I really ended around the end of Neo. I never really got into Gen 3.
Exact same.
Which is not a bad place to let off, because in my opinion, that was really the high watermark for Pokemon, at least in the Wizards of the Coast era, were the Neo sets. So left off there and still maintained an interest in Pokemon, more or less kind of on the anime side. Still watched the anime, played the games, things like that, but took a hiatus from the TCG. And then in around early 2016, at that time I had graduated from college, been out of college for a couple years, and I was a practicing financial advisor. So I had my own practice, was building up a portfolio of clients. And one day I was actually perusing through eBay and came across a Base Set Unlimited booster box, English Base Set Unlimited booster box. And I believe at the time, I think it was going for around $850 or so. And having that financial background, I looked at that from a supply and demand standpoint and said to myself, first of all, I can't believe that these are actually still out there, and that they're available. I could buy this right now. But also just from the scarcity standpoint, there can't be that many out there. And so I saw it as an opportunity, and that's really when I started to dive back into Pokemon. I started to do more research, started to watch videos from guys like Primetime Pokemon, Gem Mint Pokemon, very early on, and started to learn more about PSA grading and how that could be incorporated into, what would be considered an overall portfolio of Pokemon. I really started to see a lot of analogies between the financial markets and Pokemon. Now, as I said, I was a financial advisor, so I was involved in the financial markets, but I also have experience in real estate. Now I'm actually a power trader, so I deal in the energies market. So I've had a lot of experience in various markets, and collectibles, every market has a lot of similarities, and I saw that with Pokemon. So dived headfirst into that, started in, as I said, early 2016, and started buying, selling, grading cards. And from there, it just kind of snowballed. I was more into it at times, less into it at times. And then with the pandemic, I, like many people, had more time on my hands. Yeah. And that's when I decided to jump onto YouTube and start to share some of the experience and the knowledge that I had garnered throughout the years. Now, there are a lot of people out there with way more experience and probably way more knowledge than I had or have at this point. But the perspective that I try to bring to the hobby is that financial background, where I try to tailor people's expectations sometimes, because we are in a period of time with the TCG where it is very hyped. It is very popular. And so people aren't always making the best decisions. I've seen this in other markets as well. We see this in real estate. If we go through a bust period in real estate, people are selling their homes off as quickly as they can. And that's where smart and savvy investors come in and they pick these homes up at the bottom of the barrel prices, and then they make huge gains overall, or in the long term. We see the same thing all the time in the financial markets as well. So really that's what I've tried to do, is I've tried to incorporate a lot of that previous experience and current experience in various markets and apply that to Pokemon to give people a more holistic approach and a more holistic perspective around the hobby.
Yeah. No, I think that's great that, you know, someone like yourself has that legit finance background. A lot of the YouTubers, and myself included, I'm not a finance guy. My background is in marketing. I work in digital marketing, bodybuilding, wrestling, all that kind of fun stuff on the side too. But my kind of career is being built around digital marketing, and I'm the first guy to say, you know, listen to my advice and my opinions with just a pinch of salt, and just bear in mind it is just an opinion because I'm not a financial advisor. A lot of what I've done is kind of, I fell into this investor category almost by default. I've covered this many times. I've spoken to Jake from Pokenomics about this. I think a lot of people now who have these valuable collections, we've almost fell into it by default because we collected them when they weren't so expensive. They now became a legit, you know, Pokemon is now a legit viable investment option, or it's at least, you know, in the short term, it's a really good flipping opportunity. There's a lot of money coming into it now. So it's good to have somebody who actually has that financial background to kind of give another, you know, a completely different insight that is a little bit more legit than just a random guy on YouTube talking about buy this card, sell this card. It's like, yeah, it's good to have that kind of that credibility, you know, and another member, you know, like yourself in the community. So, you know, that's really good. When you mentioned about the base set box and the base set box that kind of brought you back to Pokemon, I suppose, the one for $850, you mentioned the scarcity of that. Do you now look at that, you know, 4 years on, probably with, you know, a lot more knowledge of, you know, re-entering the hobby and the number of base set boxes that we see get opened on YouTube, the number of people we see on Instagram with, you know, these amazing, you know, sealed collections. How scarce do you think these base set boxes are, like, in 2021 now?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's having been in it now for a few years, I fully realize that they're not nearly as scarce as I originally had thought back in 2016. That being said, though, it's all relative, because these are boxes that are never going to be reprinted again. There's never going to be more supply. And with the proliferation of things like box opening channels, box breaks, all of these different things, or just people who want to be able to have that nostalgia and have the viable income in order to purchase these, the supply of those are just going to continue to go down and down and down. So even though the supply is more than I had initially anticipated, it's only going to go down over time. And there's going to be so many people out there that want these boxes as part of their collection, or the contents on the inside of these boxes as part of their collection. So as you said, even though now we look at it and we say, okay, the supply is higher than we expected, you still look at that and it is a scarce asset, and it is an appreciable asset. Yeah. And that's where I think you're starting to see this trend of a lot of traditional investors, people who invested solely in the financial markets, or even real estate for that matter, but more like stocks, fixed income, those type of assets, are now starting to migrate towards these, what we call alternative assets, which for the longest time, that was mainly gold and silver. That was really the alternative asset that most investors were incorporating as part of their portfolio. But now we have the rise of the collectibles market. And with Pokemon, now that the hobby is getting close to 25 years old, it's not even so much a collectible anymore as it is an antique. Because many of these products are so rare, are so scarce, that it is viewed more as an antique. And if you've watched any of the antique road shows, auction houses, many of these antiques or high-end collectibles can go for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. And that's because the supply of them just continues to go down and down and down. It's also very similar in the the rare like documents industry. People, I recently just watched a documentary on Netflix about a guy who was a dealer in like texts, like really old texts from like the 1800s, and it's the same thing. The people are willing to, collectors are willing to pay a really good price for these very, very scarce items. And Pokemon is now starting to move into that category of an antique, beyond just a collectible, and now into the antique category.
Yeah, no, everything you've said, I completely agree with. I think the sealed box markets, I think for many sets, base, jungle, fossil, team rocket, I think there's probably more out there than what a lot of people initially do anticipate. But that being said, it is one of those things where the supply is constantly dropping because of people on YouTube doing these box breaks. That's, over 2020, that has become a massive thing. Whether it's people selling the packs as, these live box breaks, whether it's the big opening channels like, I don't know, a Leon Hart or somebody like that, an Unlisted Leaf, who are opening just for the content in their own collection. These packs are being opened all the time. They're being opened on Instagram Lives, on Facebook groups, things like that. And these are just the ones that, are actually public. We saw celebrities like Logan Paul in one of his videos showed a very brief snippet of the boxes he had opened with his girlfriend. And, we don't know how many unlimited base set boxes he went through during that time frame. But some of these big celebrities, they're not, if you're like a rapper or a musician or an actor or something like that, your primary focus isn't creating Pokemon content for YouTube. You're just going out buying this box, opening it for a little bit of fun, and that's that. So we're seeing as many of these box breaks as we're seeing online and on YouTube. We're seeing, there'll be just as many, maybe it's a little bit less, but there'll be a ton of box openings going on off camera as well. And I think a lot of people forget that many people, many collectors and content creators, so there's a lot going on behind the scenes that we don't actually get a chance to see as well. So there's that supply is always going down. So that kind of brings me on to something else I wanted to discuss with you today: the sealed markets compared to the individual card market, primarily the PSA card markets, the graded card market. Over 2020, we saw this meteoric climb across, every single, you could have bought any single Pokemon cards, any single Pokemon product in January 2020, and come July, August, September, you've made money. And it's just out of pocket. You could have literally bought anything and you've made money. We then saw some dips in the market and some retraces kind of in the October, November time. From what I saw from my Instagram feeds, from my searches, things like that, the sealed market wasn't hit anywhere near as much as what some of the individual graded cards were. One of the biggest hits that I saw, and I think everybody kind of predicted this, who's been around for a while, was the PSA 9 base set Charizards. That had a super high climb in that early October period when Logan Paul was just getting into Pokemon. Come end of October, November, that had kind of dropped quite dramatically. However, the base set booster box retraced a little bit. I remember seeing them selling for around £23,500 over here in the UK. Those are still selling, or at least I'm seeing them advertised for around £21,000 now. So it's not even a 10% reduction. Whereas that PSA 9 basic Charizard, I saw those going on eBay fairly regularly for over £4,000. And I've not looked at the price in a couple of weeks now, but the last time I was looking at them, they were hovering just over £2,000. That's almost a 50% reduction. So it's kind of from your experiences and the products that you're looking at, or the items that you monitor. What do you think in terms of somebody investing in sealed products compared to graded cards? What do you think is, one, the safer option? What do you think, as a second point, what do you think has the best potential returns? And, here we are now in April. What do you kind of see, or what have you noticed over the past 6 months or so, the differences between both markets?
Yeah, no, it's a very good question. And I actually did a video here not too long ago basically talking about the balance of risk versus reward in the Pokemon market and how certain investors fall along what we call a risk tolerance spectrum, all the way from a conservative investor to an aggressive investor and everything in between, and learning where you fall in that spectrum, what level of risk you are willing to take, and then also what products fall along that spectrum as well. So using those examples there, you've got graded cards, okay? Now, I have always compared graded cards to stocks. You can see them intraday, they will fluctuate wildly. And we saw that with the Charizard. Now, there's a certain spectrum of that as well, just as you have a certain spectrum on the level of stocks. So, you've got on the bottom, you've got like value stocks for like startup companies that can be very risky. There can be a high reward there, but there's also a lot of risk that company could default, that company could go bankrupt. And then you've got more like blue chip stocks. You've got your Microsofts, your Amazons, your tried and true companies that pay consistent dividends. Same thing with graded cards. At the upper end, you have things like a Pikachu Illustrator card, trophy cards. We're pretty confident in the overall supply of these cards. And so you don't see a whole lot of fluctuation in either direction, either going up or going down. Now, during times of high popularity like what we've seen, you'll still see those cards start to climb, but any type of retrace that you see on them is pretty minimal. And that's because they are so limited. And also the pool of investors that are actually able to afford those is very limited. There's very few people out there that are going to be able to pay $100,000, $200,000, or even close to $1 million for a single card. Yeah. Then at the bottom end, you have cards that are very popular. And by them being popular, the population, as the name would entail, you'll see that just increase again and again and again. And that's what we saw with the base set PSA 9 Charizard. In the beginning, when there wasn't a whole lot of those out on the open market, you saw the prices start to climb. With the Logan Paul box break, you saw those start to climb. But as more of those cards became graded and more of them came out onto the open market, then you had sellers who were just trying to undercut each other. And that's why the prices started to fall. And at one point, if you looked at the price of a base set 9 Charizard and compared that to a PSA 10 Evolutions Charizard, just the regular holo, the PSA 10 Evolutions Charizard was higher. But the reason being was that the population, it was very difficult to get a PSA 10 in that particular Charizard. And so there you have, again, a supply and demand issue. There's less supply out on the open market. And so you started to see the price push higher and higher. So there's an example of something that you can compare to the financial markets in graded cards. They are very analogous to stocks in the way that they fluctuate and the volatility that we see in that particular area. So I would classify graded cards for the most part anywhere from like a moderately or a moderate type of investor up to an aggressive type of investor. And that's not to say that if you don't fall in that spectrum that they can't be added to your portfolio, because in the end, what you want is a diversified portfolio. Whether you're talking about the financial markets, whether you're talking about Pokemon or anything, you want a diversified portfolio, because should one area of the market take a hit, let's say that graded cards are, when all of the backlog comes out from PSA and all of these cards flood the market, more than likely the prices on those are going to be affected, that they're going to take a hit. That's where you turn to something like sealed products. And again, with sealed products, there is a spectrum there. So on one hand, you've got like modern sealed products. And I actually think that modern sealed products, modern sealed booster boxes, would be probably the most conservative investment that you could get into. Because think about it this way.
100%, yeah.
Yeah. So think about it this way. For people that are like, wow, what do you mean? Like modern, like there could be so much volatility there. And it's possible. It's possible that a booster box could fluctuate, from, I don't know, $100, and it could jump like Evolutions up to $500, and it could go back down. But the thing with modern is there is a floor there. So, and that floor is retail price or MSRP. We have seen very few booster boxes that have fallen below that price point. We've seen it with Evolutions, and I think we also saw it with Maybe Roaring Skies, I think was the other one that fell below really like that $95, even $100 price point. Now I'm speaking in dollars, so for anyone out there that's from Europe or UK, you can do the conversions on the currency. But those are very few and far between. So there you've created a floor for yourself. You've almost put like a sell limit on, like in the financial markets, you have stop limits, you have sell limits. You've almost put that on that particular product. But then that product could climb more and more. But it's generally going to be slower, steadier, and it's going to take more time for that product to climb. Very similar to what we see in the bond or fixed income markets. Those are typically very conservative investments, especially if you get into something like treasury bonds that are backed by the US government or the UK government and something like that, municipal bonds. And then you've got like junk bonds, which are a little bit riskier. And I know I'm getting into like a bunch of different things here, but the main focus that we're talking about here are these analogies. And with modern booster boxes, modern sealed products, I see those as probably your most conservative investment that you can get into. And they're also going to have the least barrier to entry for most people. Most people can afford a $100 booster box or even a $150 booster box when it first comes out. And what I've recommended to a lot of people is when a set does come out, maybe buy a case of that booster box and then just hold on to it. Hold on to it for 5 years, hold on to it for 10 years. Look at it in the same manner that you would look at a bond. Like if you were investing into a particular bond, you invest at the coupon rate and then you wait whatever the amount of time is. Say it's a 10-year treasury bond. You wait the 10 years, you get the $1,000 that you paid for it back plus the interest that has accrued over that time. Same thing with modern. You invest in that case, you let it appreciate over time, and then at the 10-year mark, you take advantage of the appreciation on that asset. Now, if we go back to vintage booster boxes, now vintage does not have that same floor. Let's take, for example, a base set unlimited booster box. Right now in the United States, that is sitting at about $30,000. Roughly. I've seen it actually getting pushed a little bit higher. I've seen bids on eBay getting closer towards about $40,000. But regardless, that could fall from $30,000. That could fall down to $1,000, $100. There's really not a floor there for that particular product. Now, do I think that it would ever fall down to that? No. I think that as long as Pokemon is a viable business entity, I doubt that it would ever fall down to that kind of level. But there is the possibility there. Yeah. So again, you're looking at these more conservative investments on a spectrum. There's still a certain level of risk involved there. Now, another option is booster packs, sealed booster packs. You were talking about the price difference or the fluctuation between sealed booster boxes and how they don't fluctuate that much. If you actually look at it over time, there's even less fluctuation with sealed booster packs. There's less of a percentage of change, I should say. There's less of a percentage of change with sealed booster packs even than with sealed booster boxes. So that's another option for folks out there as well. But again, the level of appreciation on a booster pack is going to be less than the appreciation typically on a sealed booster box. Yeah. And obviously a lot less so than the potential appreciation or gain on a graded card. Graded cards are also a great way, though, for people to enter the market to build up capital to invest in other areas, because you can go out onto the open market and you can purchase raw cards for pennies on the dollar of what that card, depending on its condition, the value that is gained by having that card graded. So that's something that I've recommended to a lot of people as well who are just trying to get started, is looking at buying bulk cards, finding the cards in there that are most popular, that are selling really well right now out on the secondary market, and getting those graded. Right now, it's pretty difficult. You're going to have to wait a good amount of time before those come back. But that can be a way for you to start to build capital so that you can start to diversify your portfolio and start to invest in many of these other areas.
Yeah, no, absolutely spot on. Again, agree with a lot of that. I'm actually going to cover and ask you in a little while about, you kind of touched on it there, about if someone doesn't have much money, how, how would you recommend to get started? One, to collect, two, to invest. But we'll come back to that in a little bit, and we'll kind of pick up on what you said there. Just circling back to the booster pack point that you mentioned, do you think there's less of a retrace, or there's less kind of movement on the prices of individual packs compared to boxes, because those items, are more affordable, because those items, they've got more liquidity in them compared to a box? What do you think? Because from my experience of looking at sealed products, I see, for me personally, I see a box as the most prestigious, because the packs inside haven't been weighed. You're going to get the average of 12 hollows. You kind of control everything that's in that box. It's it's not being tampered with. When you get an individual pack, there's always that little bit of doubt of, has it been scaled? Is it going to be a light pack? Is it going to be a heavy pack? Is it genuinely an unweighed pack? But when you have a box, you can always make more money by selling the packs individually, rather than selling the box as a sealed product. Usually you can make more. Do you think that's just purely because the packs, there's a bigger market for the packs because they're more affordable, and that's why there's less of a price movement on there? Like, what do you think that could be?
No, I think you're spot on. I think as you said, there's more liquidity there with an individual booster pack, because in the end, it's more absorbable by the market. When I say absorbable, I'm just strictly speaking from the price relativity standpoint compared to an actual booster box. There's many more people out there that can afford that booster pack versus an entire booster box. Now, again, using another analogy here, a booster box in many ways is comparable to a mutual fund. So, for instance, if you wanted to construct a portfolio for yourself in the financial markets, you could go out and you can pick your own stocks. You can pick your own bonds or fixed income, and you can put that together for yourself. Or you can go out and you can buy into a mutual fund, which a mutual fund is essentially just a basket of securities. So it either is a basket of strictly bonds, a basket of strictly stocks, or it can be a combination of both. And very often this is thousands of different securities all combined into one. And then you have a portfolio manager that reallocates those and adjusts it according to the goals of that particular investment. And really, in a lot of ways, it's similar to a booster box in that we've talked about graded cards are similar to stocks. They function very similar to that. The volatility, the potential gain on those are similar to stocks. You've got that in there. At the same time, you also have booster packs in there that are similar to bonds in the way that they function, the fact that it does take a longer time horizon for those to see a certain level of appreciation. They're more conservative. So when you buy into a booster box, you are essentially buying a mutual fund of Pokemon, where you have the opportunity and you have the ability to make various decisions on what you want to do with that. You can keep it sealed and you can just allow that to appreciate over time and then maybe sell it later on down the road. You can break that open and you can sell the individual booster packs. Especially if you're seeing a lot of liquidity there, as we've talked about. If there's certain sets where booster packs are moving very frequently, then maybe it's a better option to break the box open and sell those individual packs. And especially if you're a reputable seller, if you're somebody that's not weighing the packs, or you're selling them unweighed, you've got a good reputation. And with all of the scams out there of resealed products, I think this is going to be more and more important as we move along. So there is a premium for working with a reputable seller when it comes to sealed booster boxes or sealed booster packs. And then the last option that you have is that you can open those cards, especially if the expected value, which I mean the price of the contents, the overall value of the contents on the inside of that booster box, outweigh the actual value of the booster box itself. And we saw that not too long ago in about fall of last year. There were several WotC booster boxes that were seeing this, where, take for example, first edition Team Rocket booster boxes, the value of the cards on the inside, PSA 10, if they came back in a PSA 10 or a PSA 9, the value of the contents on the inside actually outweighed the overall value of a sealed booster box. So at that time, it was actually more viable of a financial decision to break the box open and sell and have the cards graded and then sell those out on the open market, because overall you would actually make more in doing that than having the booster box sealed. Now that has changed, where the sealed booster box is now outweighs the value of the contents on the inside. So the expected value is not the same as it was before. So that's an opportunity that people can look at. Look at the value of the potential contents on the inside, the individually graded cards, PSA 9, PSA 10, and see what those are going for in the aggregate. And then you can compare that to the value of the booster box itself. And you can find products that are actually undervalued. And that's a great opportunity for people to jump in and really start making moves on that particular product.
Good, yeah, really good point. That's something I noticed last year, and I want to say it was kind of up until maybe that Logan Paul box break, when he was pulling those first edition cards and things like that. There was quite a few boxes that you would look at, and if you look at the PSA 9, PSA 10s, those would be, if you got lucky, because I always say on my channel, opening packs and opening product, it's low-key gambling, because you could go and spend hundreds, thousands of dollars on some heavy packs, unweighed packs, open them and get the contents of those packs could be far less as individual cards than what the sealed product is. On the flip side, you could open a single pack, pull a card PSA 10, that's going to be way more valuable than what the price of the packs were. So I always do say it's kind of like low-key gambling. But last year I noticed there were certain boxes where if you opened it, the cards themselves inside would be worth way more than the box. And I've noticed over the past couple of months again that a lot of the sealed product now, when you look at the prices and you think, okay, the chance of me pulling the chase card is probably fairly low. The chance of it coming back to PSA 10 probably is fairly low. It seems to me now like the way to build that collection is buying either the raw cards to get graded or buy the cards already graded. And I think a lot of the openings now, and I don't know if this is because the popularity that streamers and box breaks online have kind of given, or if it's just, so many people wanting to chase that nostalgia. I think a lot of that price tag of sealed product now, especially packs, I think you're paying for that experience rather than just the cards and the contents of the pack. I think, what do you think?
Yeah, and I'm really glad that you brought this up, because this is something that I've seen kind of disseminated across the platform that a lot of people don't understand. So really, we can credit a lot of the box breaks to PokeRev. He's really the one that really started all of this, and he caught a lot of flack for that in the beginning. And now you're seeing a massive proliferation of box breaks. I recently actually did one on my channel with a black and white base set, which is a funny, it's funny that you bring up like the potential for the cards on the inside to outweigh the booster box, because we actually didn't open up all of the packs. I gave people the option to keep their packs sealed if they wanted to. But out of that booster box, we pulled both the full art Reshiram and the secret rare Pikachu. Both of those cards in a PSA 10 are going for well over $1,000. So right there in those two cards, you basically have most of your value made up in the booster box itself. But the thing that I wanted to address here is that when people, as you said, when people are buying into these these box breaks, they are buying in for the experience, and a lot of them really like that, especially people that go on to something like PokeRev's box breaks, or even Logan Paul's box breaks. They're also getting that notoriety as well. They're getting their name shouted out, maybe their channel. There's a marketing aspect to that as well. But for a lot of people, they look at what the price of individual packs are going for out on places like eBay, and then they look at the prices that many of the box breakers are charging, and they're saying to themselves, how can they charge so much more for the booster pack compared to what we're seeing on the secondary market on eBay? And here's the thing that a lot of people have to understand. First of all, you don't know what that particular box breaker had to pay for that booster box. So for instance, for my box break on the black and white, I was charging $84 for an open pack, $90 for a sealed pack. Well, that booster box, when it was all said and done, the price that I paid for it, which I had to pay, I pay a premium on it because I want to make sure that I'm getting it from a reputable seller. And so when you do that, I'm already paying a premium from that standpoint as well. On top of that, there's time and effort that goes into advertising that, making sure that that box break is trying to get sold out. So there's a certain amount of time that you have to allocate to that, where you have to sit on that product and you have to make sure that you have the capital in order to sit on that for a period of time. Then you also have to take into consideration the transaction fees and the shipping costs that go into that. So, and then on top of that, there is also a premium that I think is warranted for products that are guaranteed unweighed. You are seeing the box open right in front of your eyes. And as I said, with the proliferation of scammers and sealed or resealed products rather, it's going to become more and more important. Long story short, when it was all said and done, for me, I'm really only taking home like $3 to $7 a booster pack. Yeah. When it's all said and done, after you take everything into consideration. But that's what a lot of people don't understand. And for many people out there that haven't been a part of the business side of Pokemon before, they don't understand all of the inner workings and all of the back end stuff that goes into something like that. So just something that I had to kind of address here today, because I actually had an interview with a local card shop owner last night here in the local Phoenix area. And it's the same thing on their end. People go into a card shop and they see, a booster box, like for instance, Battle Styles. They see that going for like $149, $159, $169. And they say like, that's unfair. That's not MSRP. But what they also don't realize is that Pokemon from the top down has consistently been raising prices on their products over time. On top of that, the allocations are so heavy that for a card shop owner, in order for them to meet their bottom line, they have to raise those prices. Because in the past, where they would normally receive, let's say 1,000 boxes, now they're only receiving 10% of that. So if you had 1,000 boxes and you were able to charge at, whatever, MSRP has always been $149. If you take it $4 a booster pack times 36 booster packs, it comes out to about $149. So that is actually MSRP. The reason that in the past that card shops were charging less is because there wasn't the same level of popularity and demand. So in order to move their product and meet their bottom line, they charged less than MSRP and took a much, much smaller profit margin, but they also had a much lower allocation. So they were moving 1,000 boxes instead of 100 boxes. Yeah. And so they could make up that price differential.
Yeah, no, I think it comes down to economies of scale, where if you're buying in bulk and you've got more allocation, maybe they get a little bit of a better deal. They can pass those savings on because they're shifting more product. But if they're not getting as much, they're having to pay more money, even though they would like to get more. We're in the middle of this pandemic. Still, I've covered this on the channel. We're in the middle of a worldwide pandemic. The UK currently, we're still locked down. Supply just isn't there from Pokemon. Whether that's a mixture of the pandemic plus this, this unprecedented demand, whatever the reasons are, it's just hard to get hold of product at the minute. So for these smaller independent shops, they probably do need to charge a little bit more, which isn't a rip-off. And I don't know how people can say it's not fair, because as you mentioned, it's just the RRP or the MSRP. But it's just people don't think they're getting a deal because they're having to pay that standard price. And it kind of just is what it is, really.
Mm-hmm. Well, and what's funny is that when we do go back to more normalcy, when there are less allocations, there is more product getting out there, these same people, you won't hear a word from them. You won't hear a word from these people when they're able to get as much of whatever the new set as they want. You won't hear a word from it. But guess what? The card shop owners, they're still having to meet their demand. They're still having to meet their bottom line. And it's just, and their prices will also be adjusted. That's what we talked about last night as well, is that as more product becomes available, again, the economy of scale factor, they can lower those prices because then they have more product that they can then push out to more customers. So you're essentially dealing more in the sense of quantity versus, versus the actual limited supply that you have and the increase in value.
Yeah. So what I want to do just to wrap this bit up, and then we're going to briefly talk about the expense side and budget kind of collecting, budget kind of investing. What would you kind of advise someone who is looking to invest the money? Maybe they're not a lifelong Pokemon fan. Maybe they weren't even a fan of Pokemon when they were kids. So there's not any nostalgia there. There's not any kind of sentimental value there. Would you recommend that they put money into Pokemon cards as an investment, or would you kind of steer them towards an alternative form of investment, something like a traditional, go and invest in the stock market, go and invest in real estate, maybe it's cryptocurrency? Do you think that for non-Pokemon fans, Pokemon is still a good financial opportunity and a good investment opportunity if you don't have that sentimental value? For example, we saw the Dumb Money YouTube channel buying that first edition base set booster box a few months back. The guys there said they didn't know anything about Pokemon, they didn't know how to pronounce Pokemon, they did a little bit of research around the set and the box purely because of the hype with Pokemon, but there was no kind of attachment there for them. For me, Pokemon is a good investment, if you want to call it that, because I have a solid collection I've built up from a kid and from 10 years ago. I have been buying pieces over the past year and a half, more with kind of an investment mentality because I've saw these prices. So it's kind of like my focus has changed a little bit, but that's because I kind of know the Pokemon market. I have a history with Pokemon, and I do have, Pokemon means something to me as a lifelong fan of Pokemon and as a lifelong collector. But if you don't have any of that, would you recommend Pokemon, or would you kind of advise somebody, not that I'm saying that you're a financial advisor before YouTube cracking down on us, but if you were to kind of say to someone, like, would you say go with Pokemon or go with this option instead?
Well, really, it's all going to be tailored around that unique individual. And, whenever I would sit down with a particular client, there was never a blanket statement. I could never say, hey, I've got this portfolio here. You get one, and you get one. No, you have to go through their particular situations. Everyone is going to be different. Sometimes you're going to deal with a 20-year-old single male that has 40 years until retirement, and they have $60,000 of student debt. Or you can sit down with somebody who is 50 years old that is 10 years from retirement, and they've got $1 million of investable assets. So it's going to vary pretty dramatically, but overall, and you really don't even need a financial advisor for this. These are like basic tenets of just good financial, of a good financial foundation. The first thing that you always want to do is you want to make sure that you've got the income and the disposable income to satisfy all of the necessities of your life: food, shelter, clothing, all of those things. Once that's met, then you can start looking at things for your long-term future. So for most people out there that will be listening to this, probably work for a corporation or a company. If that company offers you some kind of retirement plan, especially if you've got now I don't know how this goes for other countries, but we've got what's called a 401k for most companies here in the United States. Basically, it's just a deferred benefits plan where you contribute a certain amount to that, you will allow it to appreciate over time, and then when you reach retirement age, then you start pulling from that account. So if your company offers that, take advantage of it, especially if they're willing to contribute a certain amount to that. Definitely take advantage of that. It's an easy way to start really saving and investing for your future. Once that's taken care of, you want to look at your debt. So how much debt do you actually have? If you've got student loan debt, if you've got credit card debt, you want to make sure that you start focusing on paying those off first. Now, you can potentially do that. And I've actually spoken to and gotten a lot of feedback from people who have paid off student debt by investing and buying, flipping Pokemon. So it is possible that you can do that. But whatever means that is, you want to focus on getting that taken care of. Then you can start looking at what we call these alternative assets, because make no mistake about it, Pokemon is risky. You have risk in the financial markets, but you also have companies, you have, in a regulatory industry that is overseeing this. There's nothing like that in Pokemon. There's no FINRA, there's no SEC looking over Pokemon and Pokemon card sellers and all of these things and regulating it. So there is risk involved in this. So what I recommend that people do is the money that you at least start investing in Pokemon, have that as your play money, if you call it that, your disposable income, everything that is above and beyond all of the things that we've previously spoken about. And then you can start putting it towards these things. You can start either investing in Pokemon, you can start building a business around Pokemon. And that's the great part about this hobby, is that you can really come at it from various different angles. So I invest in Pokemon, I've created a business around Pokemon, but I also collect Pokemon as well. Yeah. So I have that sentimental attachment to it, so I can do all of those things. For those people out there that don't have that, you can still do the investment side of it. You can still create a business around it. And there's plenty of people out there that do. And I think it is viable, but much like any other business pursuit, much like any other investment option out there, you have to sit back and you have to weigh the risks versus the rewards in this. And to me, you never want to over leverage yourself. Don't go out and buy products on credit. Don't go out and take out a loan to try to buy these products. There's a lot of other options out there. I've talked about it before. Various ways that you can start investing in Pokemon. You can start to reallocate your existing budget. So let's say that you spend $7-8 on coffee every single day. If you amortize that out throughout the year, it's a lot of money. Or even throughout the month. So maybe it's like $300 a month that you're spending on coffee. So then you reallocate that and you say, okay, you know what? I'm just going to start making my coffee at home, and I'm going to take that $300 and I'm going to start putting that towards Pokemon. So then you haven't really changed anything. You've only changed your spending habits, and you've reallocated that towards something else. Another viable option is to maybe pick up a part-time job, some kind of side hustle that allows you, it's kind of like your angel investor for Pokemon. You're using the income derived from that to then invest in Pokemon or build a business around Pokemon. Now, if you don't want to go down either of those routes, there's also various means where you can invest in Pokemon, or you can make a business without any money down. So for instance, for the last few years, I have brokered deals for Pokemon products. So for instance, right now, I've got a gentleman here in the Phoenix area that just came across a base set unlimited booster box. Been sitting in his garage since 1999. Crazy. Completely pristine, everything like that. And another member of the community who knew him said, hey, get in touch with PokeNav and he can probably help you out with this. So all I'm really doing in this case is I'm going out and I am finding a buyer for this seller. And then for my time for basically brokering that deal, then I just simply take a commission off of that. And very often I'm able to get a better price for that seller than what they would otherwise get if they were going about it on their own, especially if their knowledge is limited. So in that capacity, it's not so much the capital that you're using, but it's not tangible capital. It's your knowledge capital that you're using there. So if you have a lot of knowledge around the hobby and collecting and investing and all these different things, there's people out there that are more than willing to pay for that knowledge. I mean, I've done it all the time in other businesses that I've created. If there's an expert in that field, I am more than willing to pay them to allow myself to cut down on that learning curve and be able to expedite the process.
I think what you just said there, it's just basic business. Like if you run a business, no matter what the business is, but you don't know marketing. Let's say, I don't know, you're a van conversion company and you're converting vans and, you know, you're fitting out interiors or you're doing body work, but you need more customers. You don't have that market knowledge. You go and pay a marketing agency or a marketing professional to do that for you. And you kind of just outsource that work because, you know, you don't have the knowledge. You pay for that. So I completely understand that brokerage side of things, you know, absolutely down to a T. Just to kind of touch on what you said there about it being risky, 100%. I last year bought a couple of sealed boxes. They were resealed boxes, thousands and thousands of pounds, you know, even more in dollars, up in the air. And like you say, there's no regulatory body. You kind of then like relying on the person who sold you the box to kind of try and get that money back. And then you're just in a chain of, you're waiting on, you know, your supplier to give you the money back, and it just goes down. And I'm still in the process of actually trying to figure out that, you know, what that is and get some of that money back. So yeah, it is risky, not just in terms of the product you're buying, but the prices as well. Something I saw when I got back into YouTube and Instagram last year in Pokemon, certain sellers, certain retailers would often tout on Instagram stories, Pokemon never goes down. And to me, that is one of the most foolish pieces of advice that anyone should listen to. We've seen it. Hopefully everybody in the community has seen the price fluctuations over the past year. Yes, it's great when everything's going up, but that doesn't last forever, just like any market. My advice would be, anybody telling you that the market never drops or the market never dips, ignore that person completely and move on, because that is just terrible, terrible advice. And also consider the source that the advice comes from. I always say on my videos, listen to what I'm saying is just an opinion, and then go and do your own research and make your own mind up. But if you're listening to the advice of people who can benefit from selling that product to you, or selling product that they're shilling or hyping up, kind of consider, is it real advice, or are they trying to just, you know, up the price of their own product to make money with me? So I suppose just wrapping up the conversation, maybe for the last 10 minutes or so, we've spoke about.
Well, if I could, I'd like to touch on that a little bit, and I think you're absolutely right, and I think that is one of the reasons why I've included some of the content on my channel that I have, where I've brought on, I have the master class, I have the roundtable each month with Z, with Jake, and you guys will actually be the first to hear this. Starting this month, we will actually also have Pokemon Radar as part of those roundtables as well.
Yeah.
And the reason being is that, much like you, even though I have this background in finance and I have the background in all of these various markets, I'm still right there along with everybody else. I don't know where the market is going to go. I can make educated decisions, and I can make educated guesses as to where I think the market is going to go in certain areas, but I don't know everything. And that's where I try to bring together as many people as I can, so that the wider audience gets that more holistic perspective. Yeah. And also in doing this, there is a certain level where you were talking about shilling and you know, creators out there that are trying to push things for the benefit of themselves. There is this inherent responsibility that I feel, and I'm sure, and I know the people that I speak to, you know, guys like Jake from Pokenomics, Z&G Emporium, Pokemon Radar, and even up the echelon. I've had, you know, we talked to PokeRev, even the box opening channels, Lee and Hart, Super Duper Danny, all of these bigger content creators. For the most part, I get the impression of an inherent responsibility from these people. When you're putting out this type of content, I always try to do so from a very objective perspective. And at the same time, it is a balancing act. And I've actually talked about this, I believe it was in my podcast with Pat Flynn, where it's this constant weighing game where on one hand, I am giving people advice, if you will, or recommendations on products that I think will do really well. And at the same time, there's also content that I produce where I'm doing box breaks.
Yeah.
So it is this fine line of being able to balance those two. And I think, you know, Pat asked me once, he said, what do you think is the biggest hurdle of that? Because he said, I'm finding the same thing of being able to provide information to people without it appearing manipulative to folks.
Yeah.
And really what I have tried to do all along is stick to my guns, stick to the things that I know, the things that I understand, the characteristics that I see in certain products. And that's what I try to provide. So for instance, like Black and White, really the entire series, I had been recommending that since like summer of last year. Because you really started to see that. You're starting to see now this set is going on close to a decade old. There's a lot of cards in there. When you were looking at the populations of those compared to modern cards or even vintage cards, there was just a disassociation there. So these were products that I was recommending. But then when I come back around and I do a box break on a Black and White base set, people may look at that and they may say to themselves, well, PokeNav is just trying to, pump up his exactly. So it is difficult. That is one aspect that of many that is difficult. And I think what people have to look at the previous history of the person that you're watching, that you're consuming content from, and see if there is a consistency across the board from beginning to end for the recommendations that they're making, the advice that they're giving. And it's usually pretty easy to pick out those that are trying to show products that are trying to manipulate people's perspectives on things. So, and again, I think the ultimate solution to that is just more information, more perspectives, and really bringing that together. And that's what I've really tried to do on my channel, and why I love coming on to channels like yourself, is to try to bring that more holistic picture to the wider audience.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, again, I completely agree with what you say there. I think you actually said the words there. You don't know what's going to happen in the market. I don't know. The round table, Z&G, Pokenomics, Pokemon Radar, none of us know what is going to happen, but none of us claim to know that. So the thing I always say in my videos is, this is just my opinion, take it for what you will. Because I don't want to kind of come across as I know everything, because I don't. I've said many times on my channel, I've kind of defaulted into this. I collected when I was a kid, fell out of it similar time to yourself, around that 2002 mark, when Gen 2 I remember Legendary Collection was available in stores in the UK, and that's when I stopped collecting. So when the E-Series came out in Gen 3, I was kind of done with Pokemon for a couple of years. I got back into it as a kid during Fire Red, Leaf Green, but not really collecting the cards. It was, for me, 2008, I was 18 years old. That's when I got back into collecting, and I was lucky enough and fortunate enough to build up a bulk of my collection back then. Held on to it all this time, just as a collector, and then 10 years later, oh great, it's now worth a ton of money. I could have started making YouTube videos again last year and tried to position myself as, I knew all along that this was going to make money, but I'm just open and I say I'm an accidental investor. And because I now have this collection that has gone from being a collection to an investment portfolio, I've myself had to learn a little bit more about the markets, and I just kind of pass on my knowledge and my experiences to people to share it. And then if they want to listen to that and take action on it, if they want to listen to it and then go and do further research, that's that's great. None of us know what's going to happen, and I think as long as you have that transparency and you are putting across what your thoughts are as just opinions, I think that is a good way to get over the hurdle that you mentioned that you maybe discussed with Pat. As long as you make it clear that, this is just your opinion, I don't think you have that problem. At least in my opinion, I think that's a good way to try and just, get that information across to people. Because none of us, we are, like you say, at heart, I think most of us on YouTube, yes, it might be nice to have the financial gains from it, but I think a lot of us are at heart collectors and Pokemon fans. And we just me personally, I just like speaking to people about Pokemon, sharing stories. Yes, it's nice to be able to get involved in the financial aspect of it and see some of these cards turned into, assets that are appreciated and dabble in, making money with that. But at heart, we don't want to see anybody get banned. We don't want to see anybody lose out. And I think that's why a lot of us content creators are just putting these videos out there to share our experiences and hopefully help people where we can. So yeah, last topic then for today. We spoke quite a bit about these expensive products, you know, the vintage base set booster packs, the vintage base set booster boxes, and all these box breaks and things like that. Something I see a lot of the time on Facebook and on Instagram, people have this perception that Pokemon is now too expensive to enjoy. We saw this crazy price climb in 2020, and while a lot of, you know, Pokemon has gone up in price, I personally feel that it's not too expensive and people still can enjoy the hobby. And I've made a video about this 2-3 weeks ago. Let's assume that somebody has that perception, but they have $100. What would your advice, what would your recommendation be to someone on a limited budget, $100, they want to have fun with Pokemon? Last question of the day, last topic of the day. What would your advice be to someone to go and have fun with $100 in Pokemon?
Well, first, you really have to ask yourself, what is your perception of fun? Are you wanting to have fun by investing? Are you wanting to have fun by collecting? Are you wanting to just go out and just relive some childhood nostalgia? I've used this example before of like the Pokemon hierarchy and how a lot of the buying decisions will trickle down this hierarchy. So let's say that back in 2016, I could buy first edition base set cards for under $100. I could do that all day, but it's not the case anymore. And I can't, like, for the most part. I mean, even for a guy like myself, like there's a lot of cards, the vast majority of cards out there for like first edition. I mean, I'm not buying those.
Yeah.
And so people have to be able to tailor their expectation, but you can move down that hierarchy. And this is what I mean by that. If you can't afford first edition base set, then maybe you go down to Shadowless. If you can't afford Shadowless, then you go down to Unlimited. If you can't afford Unlimited, then maybe you're going down to Japanese. And then from there, you go down to Evolutions. And then from there, you go to CP6. And there's got to be something along that hierarchy where it meets the price point of the investor or the collector. So that is something that I would start with first. Fine tune it, really look at what it is that my little girl's yelling for me right now. That's the life of a Poke Dad. But hold on, sweetie, I'll be out there in a second. But yeah, so you want to look at what it is that you want to enjoy. And that's where you really have to, like for me, like I'm not concerned about getting the Charizards. Like I'm a Mewtwo guy. Like Mewtwo's my favorite Pokemon.
Yeah, love Mewtwo.
So, you know, that's where you have to look at, like, are you trying to buy these things because you actually want it, or because that is what's most popular and what is being thrown in your face all the time? Yeah. So that I think is a great place to start. And then finding those price levels that fit within your particular budget. So for $100, I mean, the vast majority of cards out there are actually under $150, especially if you're picking cards up raw. Now, again, does that mean that you are you the type of person where you have to have a gem mint card? Or are you okay with a lightly played card or a highly played card? Or you're okay with something that's like a PSA 5 status? You just want to have it in your collection. That's, again, another factor that you have to take into consideration there, because you can lower that price point even further if you're willing to sacrifice the quality over the quantity, or the condition over the, you know, the actual higher valued products. Yeah. So to give you a specific example, I actually just did a video. And again, this is just strictly hypothetical. It's just something that I saw that I thought was an interesting topic. I recently did a video on the top 5 Pokemon with the fewest cards ever released in.
I saw that pop up. I'm not going to watch it, but I saw it pop up on my feed. It's one to watch for the weekends.
Yeah. So, you know, it's just kind of a fun topic there. And it was a concept that I was thinking about. I was like, well, you know what? We've got cards out there that are extremely rare. We've got cards out there that are extremely valuable. These are tailored to their quantitative measures. And then we've got cards out there that are valuable in the sense of like the connotation behind them. So like banned cards, because of the cards being banned, a lot of people really want those. They're not necessarily super rare, but they're highly sought after because of the connotation behind them. And some cards can have a mix of both. They can have a connotation behind them. They can have the quantitative measures as well. So it got me to thinking, well, what about Pokemon specifically that have had the fewest cards has every Pokemon had a card in the TCG? Yeah. So I started researching it, started looking into it further, and I came up with these 5 Pokemon that have the fewest cards. And a spoiler alert, they're all baby Pokemon.
Right.
Baby Pokemon were released back in Diamond and Pearl.
I think.
What's that?
Was it Neo Genesis when baby Pokemon? I remember there was the Pichu cards in Neo Genesis.
Well, I'm speaking specifically of the typing of baby Pokemon.
Yeah.
Because you're absolutely right. You had what was the?
It was the baby.
I mean, technically, Togepi would be considered a baby Pokemon. Cleffa would be a baby Pokemon. But yeah, really Diamond and Pearl is when we started to see the typing on the cards for baby Pokemon. And that's where most of these cards were actually released. So the top 2, there's actually 2 Pokemon that have only had 1 English card ever released. That is Bonsly and Mantike. They had 1 card released back in Diamond and Pearl base set, and that is the only card that has ever been released for those Pokemon. So there again, these are cards. You can pick these up out on the open market in PSA 9, PSA 10s for pennies on the dollar. Especially raw cards, well under $100 for a very good quality card. And you're getting into something that could have potential there. And it's also fun. It's something that you can have as a collector's piece, something that could be a conversation starter where you say, I've got the Pokemon, I've got a complete set of the top 5 Pokemon with the fewest cards ever released into the TCG. Yeah. And then I think number 3 was Budew, which in actuality, that Pokemon has the fewest overall. So Mantike and Bonsly, they only have 1 card released in English, but there are 2 promo cards that were released in Japan. Whereas Budew only has 2 cards that were released in both English and the Japanese equivalent. So overall, Budew actually has the fewest cards ever released.
Yeah. I think when you get into the specifics, and I spoke about this on a video recently, when you get into the specifics of different kinds of collections like that, you can make it super fun. You can set yourself a goal and you can make it affordable. What you mentioned about collect what you like, what you think is fun, rather than just what's popular. Yeah, Charizard's always popular. Charizard's always expensive. So if you go and buy, well, Charizard's gone up in price, I can't afford it now, so Pokemon's so expensive. Okay, great, your price of the market. But if you actually enjoy Pokemon as a franchise, like you just mentioned, a subject like that, collecting cards that have the fewest prints or the fewest appearances across the entire TCG, collecting cards by specific artists, collecting cards like specific species of Pokemon. There's a ton of different ways to build a collection that makes, the entire hobby fun, and that kind of makes you feel like you've earned something and you've worked towards completing the goal, and you can check it off your list at the end of it. That isn't expensive. It's going to make you learn more about the hobby, keep you active, and you can have fun doing it. So I think that what you mentioned there is a great starting point. I'll link it. It'll be on the eye somewhere, or I'll put the link for that video of yours down in the description below so people can go and check that out. And I think it is just, I know I hate the phrase, thinking outside of the box, but I think if you want to have fun with Pokemon, for me, it's easily doable. And like you mentioned, how do you define fun is going to be different for everybody. But if you want to collect and you want to make collecting affordable, I think it's very easy to do if you just get a little bit creative with what your goals are. Forget about the hype, forget about all the expensive cards, and you just kind of niche down a little bit. Use a hierarchy that you mentioned. I've kind of got a similar process as well. It starts with grades. If you can't afford the 10, go the 9, 8, 7. If you can't afford grades, go for the raw cards. Mint, namings, plays, whatever it might be, and you go down the hierarchy. If you can't afford the English, go for the Japanese. So very similar kind of process to yours.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I definitely think you can have fun, you can collect without spending a fortune.
Yeah, definitely. Another example would be fairy type Pokemon. Pokemon, what I believe it was after Cosmic Eclipse, I think right before Sword and Shield base set, did away with the fairy typing. So maybe you go back and you collect all the fairy type Pokemon.
Yep.
And that, again, that's kind of a one-off, a little niche thing that you could be the only person out there that is actually doing that.
Yeah.
Same thing with the baby Pokemon, or these Pokemon that had the fewest cards. There's so many opportunities out there for folks. I do a series along with that, an undervalued series, where I just basically comb the market and I try to find products or sets or series that I think is currently being overlooked by the overall market. And I try to provide that to people and say, hey, look, here's another opportunity as well for people to get in. Maybe you can get in on the ground floor. And if you're specifically an investor, you can get in on the ground floor, and then 5-10 years from now, actually be in a similar position to people who were investing in, I don't know, the base set unlimited booster boxes back in 2016. You can be right there.
Or something, yeah. No, I agree completely. No, completely agree. So last thing for today then. Sun's out, guns out. I want to get that plug in. There we go. So hit the like button for that gun show. I just want to say a big thank you for coming on today. We've obviously tried to set this up a while ago, so I'm glad that we could get the time made for it. Is there any kind of last thing that you want to say to the viewers here? Where do you want them to go? I'll put your links down below, but do you want to kind of just give one last plug for where they should be checking you out?
Yeah, so on Instagram, you can find me at Real PokeNav. On YouTube, you can just find me at PokeNav. We are right now on the road to 10,000, so on the road to 10,000 subscribers. Once we hit 10,000 subscribers on the channel, I've got a big giveaway. We've got a Battle Styles booster box. We've got a Shining Fates ETB. We've got packs of Evolutions. We've got packs of Burning Shadows. There's so much that is going to be involved in that giveaway, and there's going to be multiple giveaways for all of those products when we hit 10,000 subscribers. So if you're not subscribed already, if our conversation was interesting to you and you want to learn a little bit more about the more of the financial side, more of the investing side of Pokemon, but also some other areas that are fun and unique, then I would encourage you at least check out the channel, consider subscribing. And as I said, when we hit 10,000 subscribers, I'll be doing some pretty big giveaways for the community. So that'll be a lot of fun. And beyond that, man, I just want to thank you for having me on today, for allowing me to speak with you and connect with your community. And this is what it's all about. It's all about the connections. And I've been on YouTube now for almost a year. It'll be a year next month. And I am just blown away by the amount of friends, of colleagues, of just wonderful people that I've been able to meet in this hobby and have conversations with, and hopefully eventually be able to see in person as well and be able to connect on that level. But it's just been fantastic. And for everyone out there, Nav Nation, I really appreciate all of you guys as well. And just everyone in the Pokemon community, I just appreciate all of your support and feel very honored to be a part of this community.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. The past year with the pandemic, social restrictions, not being able to go, see friends, see family, go visiting places. I think this community has been, a big part of people's lives. I've made a ton of friends over on Instagram, over on YouTube. I've watched, the entertainment I've got from watching channels like yours, from Pokenomics, from watching Z&G. There's, it's just a great community to be a part of. I'm happy to be part of it. And, this is what the community is all about. And it's great that Pokemon, something that, I was introduced to when I was 8 years old, way back in 1998, I'm still meeting, new friends because of it and having a great time doing it as an adult. So yeah, just want to wrap things up there. Thanks everybody for watching. If you have enjoyed this, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Go and check out PokeNav. All the links are going to be down below. And until next time, remember that collecting ain't no gimmick, it's a lifestyle.